Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier on Tide 100.9 on your radio dial and the Martin Houston Radio Network. We currently are not connected on the radio network, but we are live and local and ready to get things going on the social network. So I want to encourage you to join in on the conversation and be a part of what we got going on. It is the Martin Houston Show powered by MaX Sports. And that MaX Sports, you may be saying, hey, what's MaX Sport? I've heard you mention it a couple of times. That is just Martin and Xavier Sports. That's what that's short for. So we're excited to be going on and have things rolling with you. It is a Thursday X, so that means we're going to have a little true false going on this morning, and then we'll also have some recruiting with Hank South if we're able to get things rolling on the radio airwaves. If not, we'll figure out. We may still bring Hank in that way, and we'll figure that all out as well as we move throughout to get those technical difficulties worked out. But X, before we get into it, we want to remind everybody that this is a day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. X, yesterday we were having some conversation around Schumann and Pruitt and Bo Davis and all of that. And I don't know that we necessarily finished that conversation because there was a couple other angles I wanted to take. When we start looking at it at the whole DC defensive coordinator conversation. So let's go ahead and pick up with that. And instead of it, would you rather? Let's talk about some true false here. And if D'Amico Ryan was not in a situation or circumstance X where he was the guy that looks to be a hot candidate, you hope they're not playing with them. I sometimes think the NFL sets guys up for failure, and they're not legit hoping these guys are successful. And and I'm talking about minority candidates a lot of times, put them in really bad situations and do not give them a fair shake or a fair chance to be successful. But it has to be intriguing because D'Amico Ryan is a name that is having unbelievable success as a defensive coordinator, and his pro team is looking for a head coach. Did they true false? And we'll circle back to Alabama. Did the Texans fire Lovie Smith so that they could indeed hire D'Amico Ryan?
That's why they did. But you look at the situation in Houston, they're on their third head coach in 3 years. Excuse me. Two of those three have been minority head coaches, David Culley and Lovie Smith. So it's an interesting look in figuring out how you're going to approach that situation. I think D'Amico is in such a good position as the defensive coordinator of the 49ers that he can really, pick and choose where he wants to go. Because honestly, I don't know if I would leave San Francisco as the DC currently just for any head coaching position. I mean, it'd have to be a position where I truly felt like I could be successful and things of that nature. Otherwise, I would just stay where I'm at, because sometimes staying as a DC or an OC would be better than being a head coach in some of these situations that are just very bad right now.
Yeah, and toxic because, like you said, third head coach, in 3 years. So the last two guys have not had a legit shot to really build have not really had a chance to build anything, right? I mean, it amazes me sometimes how people can be business savvy enough to build what they build in terms of businesses, but yet, but yet they cannot lead an organization any better than they do. And you look at the Steelers, who've had three coaches in their history. You see what I'm saying? Like the Steelers have had three coaches in their history, and the other Houston has had three in the last 3 years. So two and three, no three. If you go back to O'Brien, so yeah, and looking for yet another. So, but anyway, keeping that true false going, and we do want to welcome those who are in on the radio. Uh, Airwaves, we want to welcome you in this morning. I apologize for um, technically not getting on at the top of the hour. We went ahead and kicked the show off because we have listeners both online as well as on the radio airways. But we welcome you in, and we're having a little true false this morning. We'll have some recruiting going on here in a recruiting conversation, hopefully with Hank South here in a little bit. And then we will see what else it has. And remember, you're always welcome to bring conversation to us by chatting us up and getting in on the conversation. So don't hesitate to do that. Back to this D'Amico Ryan X. If D'Amico Ryan was not perceived to be a hot candidate in the NFL, would D'Amico Ryan be the number one candidate for the University of Alabama DC job?
I believe so. When you look at the fact that Nick Saban does like guys with NFL experience and pedigree, and the simple fact that he is a former Alabama player, I think he would be the hot name on the board. But a lot of people do believe that he's finally going to get his opportunity at the NFL level to be a head coach. So that's why he's not, in my opinion, on that short list currently.
You think I think he's on the list personally, and I think that there's some conversations there, and I could be wrong, but to me, I would say true. If D'Amico Ryan wasn't, when you look at what D'Amico Ryan is doing in the NFL, I mean, just let's just break down that defense. Is it San Francisco Giant San Francisco 49ers? Did Are they not doing exactly what we thought we would have seen from Alabama last year, this past season? Is that not what we've been watching? Ed?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. I do think it is, and I do I believe that he is a name on the list. Yes. Do I think he's a realistic candidate? Probably not, just because I think he's going to get an NFL job, and that's really what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I definitely think, anytime you have a former player who's in the position that he's in, you always, kick the tires on it to see what can happen. It's just, I'm not sure how realistic it is for him to leave the NFL.
Okay. Now, and Jed Cohen asking this question. So this is not really a true false question, but it'll lead me to my next true false question. Jed Cohen saying, what would Alabama have to do to get D'Amico Ryan to come here?
I think he would not have to get an NFL job or not get a job that is enticing enough for him to leave his current position, and then I think you would have to have some type of coaching waiting type deal for him to leave, because he's going to get an opportunity at the NFL level, whether it's this year, whether it's him accepting a job or wanting the job is more of the issue, I think. I think that's what it would take.
And I don't know that he's going to get a job this year, number one, because of the way the NFL works. And I don't know what type of job security he'll have there. So those two kind of factor in, and so my thought is very similar to yours. Is that you would have to have him be the coach in waiting in writing. You know what I mean? Not just the coach in waiting, but the coach in waiting in writing. I think you would have to, without a doubt, have that. I think that being a binding contract. Let me ask you a different way. Keeping the true false going. If they went after DeMeco Ryan, backed the truck up to him, paid him $2.5, $3 million, whatever, something like that, highest paid assistant coach, assistant head coach, defense coordinator in the country. Would you have would DeMeco Ryan accept the job with, in writing, he is going to be the next Bama head coach, highest paid defensive coordinator? Would that be enough to even entice him if he's looking at an NFL head coach job? True, false?
True. I think that would be enticing enough for him to really consider it. You look at right now, Todd Monken is the highest paid coordinator in college football at Georgia. He's making right over $2 million currently. Probably get some type of incentive deal with him just repeating as national champions. But he is only 38 years old, so he's still really young when it comes to the coaching world. And so I think he would be okay knowing that, say Saban has 3 to 5 more years left in the tank. So that puts him, around, 43, 44 at the oldest of getting the head coaching job at Alabama. So I do think that would be enticing enough for him to look into it and really consider coming to Alabama. But it has to be something that is, etched in stone, and that and a probably not only etched in stone in the contract, but a timetable set as well.
Yeah, and you just nailed it. I don't think he would just do it just to do it. I think there would have to be, by this time, you will get this opportunity, or we will pay you this. And I don't see his stock going down at Alabama. So if in 3 years at 41, he will. I think I'd be shocked that he's not. When was the last time a coach didn't leave here and get a raise and get at least an equivalent job, if not a higher job? We just complained about Pete Golding for 5 years, and he just went and made more money, pretty much doubled his salary, not pretty much double what he gonna make, and went to a lesser school. So I think the opportunity out there. That's just an intriguing thought, X, when you think about DeMeco Ryan and what that means for him and the opportunity. My next question, though, true, false, is Alabama, the University of Alabama, ready for a black coach? True or false? Yeah, I'll go first if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, listen, this is a conversation. If anybody's offended by what I say, I apologize up front. I think from a lot of the fan base and a lot of that, it wouldn't be an issue at all. I couldn't say that years ago. From a fan base standpoint, I think it probably would have been mixed emotion, but as the there will be some, I think, some from the older hand as far as the fan base that may struggle with it. Um, but I would say a lot of the fans that I have interacted with and those I've talked to, I think they would be fine with it. I think as you go younger, I think they would be even better with it for two reasons. One, it's not as big an issue. They don't know a lot of times a lot of difference in when you get to a certain age and it just be he'd be the next coach. Um, but as far as the overall fan base, I would say they would Alabama fan base is ready. I don't know that there's I know let me say this. I think there would be some powers that be, some money people who used to have a lot more influence and control before Saban um, would seek an opportunity to regain that place. That makes sense. And if that were to happen, I think they would realize at that moment that their grip and their hold would be at risk. So I think not all, but I do think there would be a contingency of Alabama fans that would have a problem with it, and that's not just Alabama fan base X. That's everywhere, but Alabama still has to overcome, unfortunately, in the minds of some, the stigma from its past, and I think we're extremely close to being able to see that happen. I had a young man tell me, he said, Martin, if that were to come to fruition, he said the best way would be um, to do it the way you're talking and have D'Amico on Coach Saban's staff and him be here and then be elevated up into that position would be even easier because you'd have the time to groom him and mentor him and he would be in that circle. So I would say true. It's a lot closer to being a outright true, but I would have some caveats at this time. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would have to agree with true, and of course with the caveats. When you really start to get into my generation and younger, I don't think it'd be an issue at all. Um, I do think it would be best if he was on staff before it happened. Also, I don't. For it to happen, I think a former player of D'Amico's caliber is the perfect route to go when you're talking about being the first black head coach at the University of Alabama. You're talking about a guy that, even though the era that he played in wasn't the greatest of Alabama football, but he was a dominant player, an All-American. So he has that pedigree as well. So if you're talking about the pedigree of player that he was, and then you look at what he did as a pro player and then as a defensive coach in the NFL, I think that creates the perfect storm. And you bring him back on staff for a few years. So I think I do think it is 95% true with a small percentage of people that would have an issue.
Yeah, and guess what? You have that everywhere. So and you have that, I always tell people that sword can cut both ways. But I think the other part is D'Amico from a character standpoint. The guy is just, I mean, he's known as a high character guy. He's a very articulate young man. He's extremely smart. That's when he's so good at what he does. Extremely smart guy in any and all circles that he would have to be called into. I think he would be able to represent himself, and that's part of it. is you have to be able to represent yourself in the university in a way, because at the University of Alabama, you are, even though Saban has figured out ways to do them a little different and doesn't necessarily do all of them all the time, but you have to be a fundraiser, you have to be a money raiser, and I think D'Amico could pull that load pretty well. So as far as getting down to it, let me see. Jed has another follow up question before I go to my next one. X, he says, my next question would D'Amico uh, my next question would D'Amico's time to come home now or a few years down the road, which much like when Roy Williams left Kansas to go to UNC? That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know if you know the story he's referring to. X Roy Williams waited. He didn't immediately go back to UNC from Kansas, but he ultimately did go home. And would D'Amico be more likely to take it now or wait? And just wait and do whatever he can do and do a good enough job wherever he ends up, that if this opportunity comes open, uh, would he be even a hotter candidate? That may be a way to ask that true false question. Could D'Amico be an even hotter candidate if he's had head coaching experience uh, and is invited back to the university to be the head coach after having coached in the NFL and or at another program?
Oh, probably true. From the standpoint of having a level of head coaching experience before taking the head coaching job, but I also look at a situation like right now that you have in Georgia with Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart was never a head coach, but you look at how he was able to keep Georgia at the same level and then raise the level, over the last few years. Now, granted, depending on where the program goes over the next few years, you could have a situation where, D'Amico's raising it back to the national championship level, given the opportunity, or keeping it there. Now, are we going to expect Nick Saban level of success? No, and I hope nobody expects whoever replaces Nick Saban to keep it at that sustained level of success, especially as a new head coach, a young head coach. So it's one of those where it could be it's maybe not a true false, but a maybe of the head coaching experience, or do you want a guy that's been here that has learned up under Coach Saban, because you have seen the positive results from a guy of the same caliber as D'Amico, that I think he is on the same level of the Kirby Smart.
Yeah, and so the next question, Curtis Lewis asking a question: why would D'Amico want the headache? So that is a great question. If what we're talking about is true, why would, if D'Amico were to take this job, knowing that it's going to come with some of the headaches we've talked about and some of those things and challenges, why would a D'Amico Ryan take the Alabama head coaching job? I mean, the defensive coordinator job, to be elevated ultimately to head coach.
Well, I think regardless of where he goes, and let's just be realistic, because there's still a stigma with some black head coaches and the opportunities that they get. I think there's going to be a headache wherever he goes, whether it's at the NFL level, whether it's at the college level, whether it's coming back as a DC, whatever it is. So realistically, there's going to be a headache anywhere. But I do believe more than anywhere that he'll have a fan base that supports him and wants him to be successful is back home in Alabama.
Yeah, and that's true. And the other thing is, it's just, if I were in D'Amico Ryan's shoes, I'll answer it from that direction. I would do it because I'd be breaking a glass ceiling. I'd be doing it because I would be going somewhere that no one has gone before, and then that opens another pathway potentially for others to pursue and see see the opportunities that can lie ahead. So I think he would take it if that was the scenario laid out. That would let him be a trailblazer, I guess is the best way to say that. One more question, then we're going to get to break here. Yeah, I agree with you all too. This is Curtis Moore. Have D'Amico on staff first to learn how to be an elite recruiter in the college ranks by the great Coach Saban and etc. What do you think? The I guess true false. If you were just just looking at D'Amico, what type of recruiter you think D'Amico Ryan would be? If Saban's been good, could he potentially be a guy that could even take recruiting to the next level?
I think it's going to be crazy. I think he could, after a few years, be on the same level, especially if he has success. Because you look, he's a young guy. He's going to be. Coach Saban has done a great job staying in tune and in touch with young players. But D'Amico's a guy that right now at only 38 years old, he's grown up through the social media era. He's been able to see how it impacts players and the game from that standpoint. So I think he'd be just fine.
Yeah. And Curtis Lewis said parents, recruiting, fundraising, booster, no off period pass. Hey, listen, I mean, and he said everybody doesn't want to be MLK. That's true, and that's why I said you asked the question, Curtis, why would he do it? And I'm saying that would be potentially why he would do it. If that's not part of what he wants to accomplish or would want to accomplish, then he wouldn't do it. That's why I said I'm going to answer that from the way I would say it, because I don't know D'Amico Ryan's, pedigree, mindset, etc. So you're right. That could not be anything. But D'Amico Ryan could like those same traits that you say, Curtis, just like you're telling me that he may not want to be an MLK. He may not care about dealing with parents. He may not have a headache about recruiting. The drive of recruiting, the drive of fundraising, the dealing with boosters, he may be driven by that. So I don't know D'Amico Ryan. That's why I said that. I don't know the young man well enough to know what motivates him to do what he does. But I know he's really good at what he does. And so if you had an opportunity to get him, I don't think you pass that up if you could put together some type of deal. Do I think that's going to happen? False. I do not at all. We're going to take a break here. Coming back on the other side, we will continue the conversation. We'll see if we can get Hank South into the conversation. And if not, we'll talk a little bit of recruiting as well, as you are in with the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaX Sports. That's Martin and Xavier Sports. We're glad to be here with you and glad you're here with us as well. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, after a rainy night, things have calmed down around the area weather-wise, and traffic looks good as well. Watch out for standing water. Be careful. If you see conditions, just give me a call. If you want a great deal on a new or used vehicle, you need to go to Townsend Nissan. Tremendous selection, low finance rates, and top dollar on your trade. Go see them. I'm Captain Ray.
In a collision, easy decision. Make one call to one name. Mesrano, 206-6300.
No representation made the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than quality quality of legal services performed other laws.
Don't buy your boat at the Birmingham Boat Show. Get your best deal on the boat you're looking for at Pier 43. Dick Harry Starcraft and Bennington pontoon boats, Sea Arc and Crestliner aluminum boats, and Bass Cat bass boats. All powered by Yamaha, Mercury, Honda, and Suzuki outboards. If you need repair, Pier 43 does repair and service on all makes and models. They also rent pontoons. Don't shop the Birmingham Boat Show for your next boat. Buy local and get a great deal at Pier 43, just off Highway 43 on Lake Tuscaloosa.
3 little words no parent wants to hear.
My tummy hurts.
And it always seems to happen at the worst times. Like in the middle of the morning rush, when you still have homework to check and lunches to pack, and of course, you're already late for work. Luckily, there's Pepto Kids. Pepto Kids Chewables provide fast relief for common stomach issues, turning those 3 words into these 3 words.
I feel better.
Bad time for stomach upsets? Good time for Pepto Kids Chewables. Fast relief for little tummies. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Becoming mostly sunny today, very pleasant, the high 68. Clear and colder tonight, the low at 37. Tomorrow, sunny with a high at 58. Saturday, clouds move in. We'll have a chance of rain by afternoon. The high Saturday at 57. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 58 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Scott Smith and Softmark Design, doing business for 17 plus years, specializing in graphic design services, commercial printing, promotional products, advertising specialties, and so much more. Basically, any and everything you would need to advertise, promote, and grow your business. Through strong partnerships, strong customer service, and creative ideas, they'll help you market and grow your business. Give Scott a call at 205-292-4680 or email scottis@comcast.net and visit them online at southmarkdesign.com.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back in to the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaX Sports. Awesome morning, awesome opportunity that we have right here to keep things rolling and talking Alabama football. Did a little true false segment dedicated mostly to the possibility of D'Amico Ryan become a future head coach. It has been a good opportunity. So we hope to see some good things happen with D'Amico. But it's now time to talk to Mr. Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. Good morning, Hank. You're in with Martin and Xavier on the Alabama One Hotline, man. How's it going?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Doing
going
well,
good. How are
doing
y'all?
well. So that's awesome. Well, I'll start off and then turn it over to X and let him take it from there. Hank, I want to talk a little basketball before we get into the football conversation there. I know we had talked a little bit about Nate Oates and this basketball team. The young man that reclassified and I don't know that and coming in a year early that they said was on the sideline. Who is that? I just called it. I didn't get his name. They just said, hey, this kid is, enrolled early, and he reclassified. Do you know which recruit that is?
Yeah, so he didn't technically reclassify. He just enrolled early. So he, Davin Cosby, the 4-star shooting guard from North Carolina. I guess in a way he kind of reclassified. I don't know. He's in the class of 2023. He signed with Alabama in November. He had committed a couple months prior to that, and he went ahead and enrolled. So I believe he's not expected to play this season, but I think if they wanted him to, or if he wanted to,
and that was going to be my question. But like he was playing high school, literally. This high school season, did he play at all with his high school?
Yeah, I believe so. I think as they got closer to January, I think he had this opportunity and went ahead and jumped on it to get going with Alabama.
Oh wow! Well, I just thought that was interesting because when they were talking about it, they didn't explain the early enrollment. That's why you could kind of tell I was kind of confused about it. Kind of confused about what happened and how, because I'm like, that would mean that this kid had a year and a half of school left. But the way you're explaining it, he just didn't, early enrollees in football have finished their season. They finished their season, but this guy just left in the middle of his basketball season. So,
yeah, I think so, and I might need to double check on that, but I don't think it was like him leaving his team in the dust. I think it was just an opportunity that he had that he wanted to jump on.
That's pretty awesome. I'm looking forward. Hopefully he's a special kid, but even if he doesn't play, man, what a I guess opportunity for him, because he gets to practice and learn and grow. And I guess the question becomes, will he have grown more by playing, or is he going to grow more by being out there with this group of basketball players? So with the way Alabama's playing. X, I'll pass it to you. Is X there?
I'm here.
I'm passing it to you.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. So real quick, finishing up on that, Hank. So if he doesn't play, does this count as his redshirt year?
I need to double check on all this. I think it would if he's enrolled in season and doesn't play, but I'll check on that this week, and y'all ask me about next week, and I'll
all right, hey, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, because I'm gonna tell you, I was listening to it and trying to figure. I'm like, what happened? And they didn't do a good job. So I think that they were kind of like confused, the announcers, because they kind of hinted around and like, I don't think he can play. Well, I don't know. Maybe he could, this whole thing. So I thought that was interesting because I don't know if it's ever happened. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting with basketball because like you have like the big thing you have is the reclass kids where that they're junior and all of a sudden they're senior and they're ready to play. I remember Kyra Lewis, he reclassified right before he got to Bama. So he was like entering his senior season of basketball and all of a sudden was a freshman at Alabama. So, you have that. And then now this little, this factor where you can just early enroll, but not technically be a reclass, I guess. So yeah, there's basketball recruiting is kind of wild.
Yeah, it's a little different from football because basketball split semesters. But switching over to football, you had the first big weekend that is looking towards the 2024 class, 2025 class. Can you talk about some of the big names that Alabama offered over this past weekend with Junior Day?
Yeah, it wasn't a huge turnout. Bama usually does a Junior Day in January, then a Junior Day, earlier in the spring. But this year they did one this past weekend, and then they have another one coming up at the end of January, right before the dead period. So, they handed out a handful of offers, reaffirmed some offers. Some of the big names that are uncommitted, or at least, that the Bama's targeting early on. Aaron Hampton, a 4-star wide receiver from Texas, he had already reported an offer back, I think, in the spring of 2022. But I think that was one of those offers, you talk to a position coach or your area recruiter, but, when you get an offer from Nick Saban, it's a little bit different. So he tweeted out, he got his official offer from Nick Saban. He's a big target, a one-time Texas commit. Another guy that, just keeps coming back to Bama, I feel like almost every weekend, is Daniel Hill, who's a 4-star. He's rated as a linebacker, but he plans on playing running back at the next level. He's a big kid. He's like 6'2", 215. So he's a really big kid. But he's been to Bama, I want to say like 6 times in the last 4 months. And he was even at the Sugar Bowl, just watching the game as well. So he is very familiar with Alabama. He was back on campus for Junior Day, meeting with Nick Saban and spending time with the staff. Some other, notable offers. Naeem Offord, who's a 2025 cornerback defensive back from Birmingham. He's going to be a big target in this 25 class, looking ahead to next year. And then another interesting offer that's back to 2024 is D'Angelo Barber, he's a linebacker from Clay Chalkville. So, we already see Bama recruiting Clay Chalkville pretty hard, with Jalen Mbakwe, who's committed, Mario Craver, the 4-star wide receiver. But now D'Angelo Barber earned an offer from Nick Saban during this Junior Day weekend, and it looks like he's a guy that Bama's going to go after pretty hard. And there was a few other offers throughout the weekend. And, we're with the staff back out on the road this month, doing a lot of evals for underclassmen and all that. We're going to keep seeing more and more offers go out. A lot of these offers are obviously, more so camp invites, not actually, Bama pushing to add these guys now. But it is kind of a part of the calendar where, the loose recruiting board kind of takes shape a little bit. Guys they want to see more in the spring, see more in the summer. Those guys kind of get more they become more highlighted, and we kind of get a better picture of who they're going to be interested in over the next 6-7 months.
All right. So we're joined by Hank South of 247 Sports and Bama Online Recruiting on the Alabama One hotline. Hank, when we're looking ahead and with some of the offers that you said that have been put out, what does it look like for 2024 is the positions of need for Alabama?
Yeah, and I think I said this last year too, with the transfer portal era, you kind of every cycle you kind of need to make sure every position is taken care of. Your roster is going to look like if kids decide to leave. Or, I think entering this transfer portal cycle, back at the beginning of December, offensive line really became more of a need with the guys leaving, the NFL draft declarations. So all of a sudden, Bama was sitting there needing some more depth in the offensive line. They were able to go out and flip Caden Proctor from Iowa. Who knows if they're going to make any more moves going forward. But, I think, offensive line, defensive line are always important. Defensive back, Kool-Aid McKinstry keeps playing like he's playing. Might be an opportunity for him to leave early after next season. So, I think those are kind of a couple areas you look at. But I think you always kind of have to start up front in the trenches. That's where games are won on the offensive and defensive line. So, I would circle that. Wide receiver, again, another spot that, a lot of guys transferred out, and who knows what's going to happen next offseason. I think every season has to kind of have, certain, pushes at each position just because you don't know, what kind of attrition you're going to be dealing with after the season.
Yeah. And when you're looking I know one position, running back, is a interesting position because you have Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams who are going into their senior years, but they do have the ability to come back for a 5th year because they're the last class that really is affected by COVID and has that COVID year. But after that, you got a bunch of young guys. Miller's a sophomore. You got the 2 true freshmen in Justice Haynes and Richard Young. You have Emmanuel Henderson, who has the ability to be a wide receiver or running back, whatever they decide to do with him long term. you've got a bunch of local in-state running backs. Kevin Riley at Exclusive County, Marion Burnett from Andalusia, and a couple more in-state. Is Alabama going to look more to stay in-state or go out of state for running back?
Yeah, good question. I think Kevin Riley is a guy that that they're very high on. He got the early offer. They're definitely going to be keeping a close eye on him and have the advantage of being able to easily kind of go see him when they need to, and host him for weekend visits with him being so close by. So yeah, he's there. Jamarian Burnett, a guy I think they probably want to see a little bit more from in terms of this spring, summer eval period, maybe even extending out towards his senior season. They like him, but I don't think he could necessarily commit at this point. That's obviously to be determined, but long way to go. So yeah, I think those are two guys that those are definitely two guys that Bama's going to be taking a look at. And there are some talented other running backs out there. They just recently offered another guy from Longview, Texas, which is the same high school as Jalen Hale, Taylor Tatum. He's the number 5 running back in the class. He reported a Bama offer a couple days back. So he's definitely one to watch. Other guys like Jarek Gibson, who's the top back in the country out of IMG Academy, a place Bama recruits pretty well. Stacey Gage, I think, is he was a guy that was at IMG. He's now at St. Thomas Aquinas, which is another program in Florida. Bama recruits pretty well. So lots of options, and definitely a spot I could have you could definitely include in terms of potentially circling that as a need, depending on what Roydell and Jace do following the 2023 season.
And one last question is as far as the in-state local kid, Travaris Banks from Northridge High School, Alabama just signed Wilkin Formby, his teammate. He's a 2024 kid who's a corner safety. Where's he at on Alabama's priority list when you look at most project him as a safety in college, and you look at Caleb Downs, Tony Mitchell, and Grayson Hubbard, 3 guys that they signed at the safety position this year. Is he still?
Kind of broke up a little bit, but I heard the question. I think
high on their list.
Really,
is he corner safety? Where are they looking? Still there?
Yeah. I think Bama likes him as a guy that can move around. 6'1", 190. Has size, but also has length. So he can. I think they like his versatility, and I think that makes him even more coveted in terms of his recruitment. So, but I think Bama likes him a lot. They offered him early last year, had him in camp in the summer, had him back on visits a couple times. He's gotten really close with Travaris Robinson. So, he's definitely, I think, a guy, on the short list in terms of, who the DB targets are right now in this class. And I think Bama has a pretty good shot at him. He's making sure, he's taking his visits, he's doing his due diligence. I think he was at Florida State last weekend. So he's checking out all these schools. But, I think Bama has a good shot at him when all is said and done.
And I will add to this, Hank. He hasn't played much. The guy is. Don't be surprised if he's one of those guys that gets to college and ends up running the ball or playing, even wide receiver. He is. He could have easily. I coached at Northridge his freshman and sophomore year, and he easily could have been, the 1 or 2 back if we wanted to feature him. And this year, even though he played DB and didn't start at running back, he was, I think, their go-to running back this year as a junior. So that'll be interesting to watch him play. But he is physical. He is a physical player. So I think he likes to hit, but I also know that he loves to run the ball. So it'll be interesting to see even what he wants to do from that standpoint. X. All right. Let's go ahead and did we ever bring Pat in with Hank? Pat, you're in with Hank South, 247 Sports, Bama Online Recruiting. What's on your mind, sir?
There we are. Hey, Hank, y'all already touched base just a little bit with Daniel Hill, but I wanted to go a little bit further in depth with it. From what I understand, that Pete Golden was his primary recruiter at Alabama. Pete going to Ole Miss, how much of a monkey wrench does this throw into his recruitment? Because some services have this young man listed at 6'2", 2.25, and at a 6'2", 225 running back are hard to come by. And my question is how much does this affect the university? And was our new linebacker coach out of Southern Miss on campus this weekend when he was there?
Yeah, he was. Austin Armstrong, the new defensive assistant, he was there. Got a lot of positive reviews from the kids. A lot of the kids I talked to already knew him at Southern Miss. So, he was already in on a lot of these kids and already had, foundations of relationships going with them. But in terms of Daniel Hill, I think by default, any recruitment in the state of Mississippi always has, it's drama towards the end. So regardless of, whether he committed now or, going forward, I think there's probably going to be some back and forth with Ole Miss. And, Pete Golding, that was, his strong suit. He was a really good recruiter. And so, he's going to win some of these battles. In terms of how it affects Daniel Hill, I'm not sure. Obviously he is plans to play running back. So, defensive coaches aren't, going to be his position coaches necessarily. So, I think it'll depend on how he feels with Robert Gillespie and, the offensive staff at Alabama. And again, you follow the visits, and he's been at Alabama pretty much more than anywhere else over the last 6 months. So, we'll see what happens. But I think Bama's in a good spot for him right now. But again, state of Mississippi recruitments are always pretty wild towards the end, regardless of kind of, how sure you feel about something.
Well, one thing about it, we're only just an hour away from Meridian. Right. Anyway, hey, appreciate it, fellas. Y'all have a day.
Thanks, Pat. Hank, as we close things out this morning, any closing thoughts or comments you want to add before we let you go?
I don't think so. Another junior day coming up, not this weekend, but the next. And then obviously roll right into signing day. Obviously, Bama's class is pretty much wrapped up, but there will be another signing day. So we'll be around. And, that's kind of where we're at. And February is a dead period again.
Yeah, that's interesting that there is another signing period. We kind of forget that, especially with Alabama having pretty much closed out one of their stoutest classes ever. Tell them where they can find you real quick, Hank.
Yeah, BamaOnline.com. My Twitter handle is @HankSouth247.
All right. Hey, I'm Martin Houston. That was Hank South @HankSouth247. Bama Online 247 Sports recruiting guru joins us every Thursday to talk Bama recruiting. We will be back on tomorrow for a free-for-all Friday. So get your thoughts, your comments, and your ideas ready to go. For Xavier Houston, Joe Gaither, Martin Houston, and the Martin Houston Show powered by MaX Sports, we say, remember this, trust in the Lord always, lean not your own understanding, always acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Roll Tide out there, everybody. We'll catch you on tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, after a rainy night, things have calmed down around the area weather-wise, and traffic looks good as well. Watch out for standing water. Be careful. If you see conditions, just give me a call. If you want a great deal on a new or used vehicle, you need to go to Townsend Nissan. Tremendous selection.